Hey, welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and so today I went to the bookstore again, the Outpost Bookshop, to the used bookstore, because I wanted to get out. Because this weekend or not this weekend. It isn't the weekend actually, but it feels like the weekend though. It's been raining the past couple days, so I've been kind of stuck inside, and I was also focusing on finishing Wall of Storms. And like the only time I went out is when we had a brief reprieve from the rain, and to take Murphy for a walk with my mom. And then of course I worked on Monday. I had to go to work on Monday. So I mostly been, like I said, I've mostly been inside, and then finally we got a more of a reprieve today, and like it's really sunny. Of course that means it's also kind of warm. It's in the 80s, I think. Although it wasn't that bad when I walked home from the bookstore. But I decided, since it's nice out, I was gonna go to the bookstore today. And then I did get a ride there. My mom offered to give me a ride to take me up there. And then I decided if it wasn't too bad, I would walk home. And I did. The only problem is, like, of course, we're across from the elementary school, our houses, and I had to, like, I know that I think parents start picking up their kids around like 2:30, so I have to, make sure I'm close to home before 2:30, so I'll have to deal with the line of cars going into the school, and having to wait on them to cross to get to my house. It's either that or wait until like 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock before I can come home. So, but luckily I think I timed it well and got in the pickup line did not start yet. It was close to 2:30, but it wasn't but it wasn't 2:30 yet, so I had a chance to come home before the line started. So I actually debated about doing this video because I wanted to, do more than just a haul. But it was like, did I have a lot to say for you guys? Because it's kind of hard to talk about Wall of Storms because it is a sequel. But I figure I'll go ahead and do it anyway. But yeah, I finished up Wall of Storms literally this morning. And I really enjoyed it. Now I gotta say, if you don't like the way Grace of Kings was written, then you probably wouldn't like the way this second one. And you may as well stop with Grace of Kings. Because it had the same writing style that it's hard for me to describe, but you are kind of kept at a distance. Like, they zoom in a little bit, so you're with the characters, but then you zoom out. And maybe that's because the Ken Liu also has from the God's perspective as well. But anyway, I personally like it. But so it's kind of hard to talk about. Like I said, it's kind of hard to talk about this one. We do have a new antagonist, and there's some more political intrigue. There's not just the external antagonist, but there's also an internal antagonist as well. Like there's drama in paradise. Let's put it that way. And also, so there was also two characters. One of the antagonists has a conversation with one of the characters that is supposed to be on the protagonist side. Although it's kind of debatable who I guess no, they're still the protagonist, but where the conversation reminded me a little bit of in the show Buffy in season 4. It's a Thanksgiving episode where they talk about the whole colonization of the Americas. And, how we gave all the Native American people diseases and stole their land and all that stuff. Well, I don't mean to belittle it with saying all that stuff, but just for, not to, waste too much time. The plot of the episode is like they accidentally release a Native American spirit. He is seeking vengeance for all his people, and there's a debate about what should we do with the Native American spirit, and how one of the characters, who's a very soft-hearted, kind person, is like, no, we stole their land, we made them sick, so we need to be more civil towards them and make up for that and have a conversation with them, try to earn their forgiveness and all that. And then the other characters are like, no, this is still a vengeance demon, and this vengeance demon also gives another character all of the diseases and sick, all the problems that that they were given as a people from the colonist. And so there's this big debate about that. What do we do, and what's the best solution? Like, they can't decide on, do they kill them because it's the Native American spirit is still a vengeance demon, or do they try to, maybe they consider their point of view. And so one of the characters, Spike, is like, okay, you guys, this is what conquering nations do. You take over, you kill their people. You made them, and you did this, so we can't change the past. And they're still going to be angry. You can't just be like all apologetic to them, because they're not going to want to forgive you for that, because you slaughtered their people. And like, you can't just be, I'm all sorry about it, because that's what conquering nations do. That's basically what he says. And the conversation between the two characters in Wall of Storms reminds me of that, where they're like, you conquered the previous people's nation. This wasn't originally your land, and now you're showing, and then you stole it from them, and now you're mad at us for doing the same thing, and it's a bit hypocritical of you. And there's this whole, and this person is trying to manipulate them to manipulate the other character, and this character on the protagonist side originally is like, that, is like, oh, maybe we can do this peacefully, maybe we can, and it's like, maybe you're being naive to think that you can do that peacefully. And it like I said, it made me think of that episode, the Thanksgiving episode of Buffy, when I was reading it. And there's other, like, even Addams Family Values kind of did that, talked about that, with the scene, when Pugsley and Wednesday are sent to camp, are tricked into being sent to camp, and they are forced to put on a Thanksgiving play, where, Wednesday is made into a Native American, she has to play a Native American, Pugsley has to play a turkey, and, these white girls with blonde curls and perfect and everything are the colonists, which is a really funny scene if you've never seen it. It's a hilarious scene. But anyway, so yeah, that in Wall of Storms, it made me think of that a little bit. Anyway, I'm also reading The Song of the Jade Lily by Christy Manning. This is a World War II story about this. We have two timelines, a 2026 timeline, 2016 timeline, and then a 1939 timeline. And so in the 1939 timeline, you have this Jewish family in Austria. Of course, it's when the Nazi Party shows up and takes over, and this Jewish family decides they gotta get out of there, and they gotta someplace safe, and they're told they can go to Shanghai for safety, for safety. But of course, the journey, it's not even easy to get out of Austria, because you have the Nazi soldiers are making things difficult for the Jews, stealing their stuff, hitting them, basically abusing them. But eventually they do get out. They are able to get on a boat to Shanghai. And meanwhile, so in the 2016 timeline, you have this girl, Alexandra. Her mom and dad had died in a car accident, so she lives with her grandparents, Rami, and her grandmother Rami, and I cannot remember what her grandfather's name is at the moment. Oh, Wilhelm, I think. And her Wilhelm is dying, and she overhears her grandmother say to him, whispering to him right before he dies, "Please forgive me." And Alexandra doesn't understand why her grandmother needs forgiveness. And that's really, and the last thing I read was them having the memorial service and everything. And I had to take a break from it because I got emotional while reading it, and it's like I just started the book and I'm already getting emotional. And I want to finish Wall of Storms anyway, so because I'm actually off. Apparently, I'm not put on the schedule anytime soon. Knock on wood. I'm worried that the fact I keep thinking about it is gonna jinx me, and they're gonna call me, and then of course I'm gonna feel like I should say yes because I still spend my money, so I need money coming in. So anyway, like I said, knock on wood. And so I wanted to get Wall of Storms done before I had to go back to before I had to go back to work again. Because I wouldn't have as much time to get to reading, and if I'm so close to finishing, I want to just be able to sit for a few hours and just finish that book. And if I got call work, that wouldn't happen. I mean, I wouldn't be able to sit, because most of the day I would be at work, and then I would have a few hours in the evening, and when I got home from work, I would not want to. I would be tired and wouldn't want to try to concentrate on the book. So anyway, so that's where I am currently with my reading. I still have not picked up the books on Filipino folk tales from the Philippines yet. I want to soon because I want to give short stories, whether they're folk tales, fairy tales, and also just short stories. I want to try to give those another shot again and get more into those. Oh, and also, I don't think I told you guys. I don't remember if I told you guys in my last update video, but I did listen to Confederacy of Dunces. I mean, I must have, because it was around the time I read The Mad Wife, and I told you guys about that one already. But yeah, because I think I did mention it because I did. I mentioned that this was a book that I attempted a couple years ago to read physically, and it was just hard to be in the main character, Ignatius P. Riley's head, because he's so obnoxious and annoying. And I know that before I even said, I am aware it's satire, and so he's supposed to be obnoxious and annoying. You're either not supposed to like him or find him so obnoxious it's funny. So I get that. I don't, but I'm just so frustrated, and it did help listening to it on audiobook. Because it was someone reading the story to me. And it counts, by the way, because just because you're not physically reading the damn words yourself, looking at the words and reading them with your own mouth, does not mean that you're not absorbing the story. I recently watched a video, and I like, where someone brought that up again, that they don't think audiobooks count, but for me personally, they do count, because you're still absorbing the story. Yes, you're using a different muscle, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of people will be doing multiple things at the same time, but I think you underestimate people when you assume that they're not paying attention. Yes, again, you're using a different muscle. But, like I said, I don't want to argue with anyone. That's why I only say this in my videos. I mean, I don't know if anyone's ever going to comment. I don't know if anyone ever has commented or anything. I mean, so far I haven't seen anyone commenting when I brought this up. But for me personally, like I said, I think to me, they do count, because you're still absorbing the story. You're still taking the story. Yes, someone else is reading the story to you, and you're using a different muscle, but it's still the same story. You're just hearing it. You're just hearing the story instead of reading the words yourself. And maybe scientifically, reading the words yourself you're taking in the story more. Your brain is able to take in the story more if you are the one actually reading the words, but you know what? But anyway, I'm not going to rant about that anymore. And if someone does comment, maybe I'll respond, or maybe I'll just ignore them. I'll see how I feel. And I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings or anything if you do want to discuss it, but I just, I've seen this talked about multiple times, and I'm very cautious about, debating with someone because, how the internet can be. But anyway, let's show you what books I purchased today. Again, I stick to my 3-book limit. I try to put it down, whittle it down to 2, but that ended up not happening because I couldn't decide which book I was not going to get between the 3 I had grabbed. And, I ended up, one of the things I was going to use as an excuse not to get a book, I didn't get a response, so, which, is fine because that person was probably busy at the time, so I ended up getting the book, obviously, because, like I said, I got 3 books. And look, I've officially put my mark on the bag, on my tote bag that I got, because I accidentally spilled a little coffee on the bag. So, it's officially mine. But I ended up getting first. So, I picked up this one, Don't Look at Me Like That, by Diana. I was about to read the wrong name. I was about to read the person who wrote the afterword of the book. But Diana Athill. This, and from the description of what this book is about, which I think from what people have said about in the reviews of what this book is about, I think it sounds like she's a woman the main character of this one, has an affair, I'm guessing. So it's probably very much in conversation with Madame Bovary, which I recently purchased. And also, it's also published by NYRB, which I think they publish not so known, their classics collection is although I don't know if this would be considered a classic or not, but are books that came out but weren't as popular or something at the time when they first came out. But actually, I was reminded of how that I like these editions, this publication, because so I started, I've been watching on and off the channel, what is that channel called? I hate when I forget the channel name. I'll put the link if I can remember what the channel. I remember the guys' names. Andy and Tony are the two hosts of the podcast that's on this channel. The main guy, Tony, had done a video of independent publishers, and this was one of the publishers that he brought up. It's his favorite publisher, and I made a comment how every time I see these books, I look at them and decide if I want to get it, because I do like this publisher, the aesthetic of these books. And I like how their classics are basically books that aren't as known or weren't as popular. And I saw this one there, and I have seen this one I've looked at this one multiple times when I've gone to the Outpost bookshop. So finally I decided to buy it, and like I said, I feel like it would be in conversation with Madame Bovary, which I also purchased recently from there. So not from NYRB, but from the Outpost bookshop. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go and give this a shot. And I bought it. I'm gonna go read the back to you guys. Okay, so it starts with a quote. The back description starts with a quote from the main character. When I was at school, I used to think that everyone disliked me. And it wasn't far from true, confesses Meg Bailey at the start of Don't Look at Me Like That. Coming of age in the mid-1940s, Meg finds herself to be at a place wherever she finds herself. She is a non-believer in her father's parsonage, an artistic dreamer at her stuffy boarding school, a provincial in the worldly circles frequented by her best friend Roxanne and Dick, and Roxanne's future husband. It is only when Meg, newly graduated from art school, moves into an untidy London rooming house, alive with the sounds of crying children, sparring lovers, and even foreigners, that she begins to feel at home. But ties to the past are not so easily severed, and Meg must disentangle herself from her troubled intimacy with Roxanne and Dick before she can begin to start living in her own way. And apparently, this is the only book that the author Diana Athill wrote. But she is a memoirist, an editor, and she recently died. Like, as in she died, I mean, not that recently, but like as in 2019 when she died. And she was 101. So let me see the date when this book was written. When this book was originally written. Okay, so yeah, so she originally wrote it in 1967. It was published in 1967. And this one was reissued in 2023. Or oh no, actually it was still like 2023 because the afterword was written in 2023. So this either come out in 2023 or came out in 2024. Probably 2023. So this was written in the 60s. So I guess it would be considered a modern classic anyway. So yeah, I think this would be a good in conversation with Madame Bovary. So I feel like I should read those two together. Of course, I say that, and then that never happens. Like, there are books that I try to read together. Like, I tried to read Station 11 with The Stand together. But it probably because The Stand is so much longer than Station 11. Like, that one's used. And I got the uncut edition. The extended version, so yeah. But I mean, I still think those two could be in conversation with themselves, but one is clearly longer than the other. So next is, and this is another one that I feel like it's in conversation with another book. So this is The Death of Artemio Cruz, by Carlos Fuentes, and translated by Alfred McAdam. So let me see, does it say? Okay, Mexico. This is translated from the Mexican. Let me read the back. So, as the novel opens, Artemio Cruz, an all-powerful newspaper magnate and land baron, lies confined to his bed, gravely ill, and in dreamlike flashes recalls the pivotal episodes of his life. Carlos Fuentes manipulates the ensuing kaleidoscope of images with dazzling inventiveness, layering memory upon memory from Cruz's early heroic campaigns during the Mexican Revolution. Through his relentless, unscrupulous climb from poverty to wealth as a hacienda owner after the war, to his uneasy present as an old man looking back over a long life filled with violence of many kinds. Perhaps Carlos Fuentes' masterpiece, The Death of Artemio Cruz, is a haunting voyage in the soul of modern Mexico. So, I was thinking, this isn't, like I said, I feel like there's another novel that would be in conversation with a classic, and that is, the death of Ivan Ilyich, which again, that is a guy looking back on his life, this rich old man who's dying, he's looking back on his life, and, questioning, did he live his life right? Was his life a waste? And I feel like this is probably doing the same thing as that. But this sounded really interesting. A guy looking back on his life. And I know it seems like right now, I don't know, maybe because like living the bookstore where I live is allowing me to, because of its limitations on the kind of books, is kind of persuading me to look at other different types of books other than my usual section, because for years I would always go to the fantasy section, the young adult fantasy section, like urban fantasy and all that. Occasionally reading some historical fiction, but the only time I would do that is if, I got the book from someone else. Like, either my mom or my sister got me, probably my mom got me that Kate Morton book, The Forgotten Garden. And so it's only when I get books from other people that I would at the time read outside of the fantasy genre. And in this bookstore, the fantasy section isn't that big, so I always say that it does allow me to look at other types of books. And at the time, years ago, I would not have thought this book was appealing, but now I do. I mean, the idea of this guy looking back on this guy that probably lived a really not so great life, not so moral life, looking back and questioning how he lived his life. Like I said, it makes me feel like it's in conversation with the death of Ivan Ilyich, which I did read also a couple years ago when I started to get into Tolstoy, and I really liked it. I wish I still had that, but that's one of those situations where I was feeling like anxious about my bookshelves. I feel like, okay, I gotta calm my shelves and get rid of some books and donate them, and I ended up choosing to get rid of where I had that collection of stories and feeling like, am I really going to come back to this? But then nowadays there are certain books that I kind of regret getting rid of it and thinking maybe I would read it. But okay, so there's that. And then the last one is a book that the book that I wasn't sure if I was going to get it or not, because like my sister, she had it I think my sister had it at one point. She had a lot of these actually, now that I think about it, I think, yeah, actually I think we did, like I said, I think we did have it, but then, and she put it on and I took it. But then at the time, I wasn't interested in Vonnegut. I didn't think I would be. And I think it was a situation where I was told that, oh, you probably wouldn't like this. And because it's weird. And, I don't even remember who told me. I mean, I keep thinking it was either my dad or my sister who told me. And then I ended up getting rid of it. So, I think I was remembering right that we did have it at one time. But then I got rid of it. But that is Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse 5. And I'm told this is an anti-war novel. And it's been compared to, or at least it explores similar themes to Catch-22, which at the time I did not like when I attempted that. I could give that one another shot if I wanted to. Or I could do an audiobook, because like I said, audiobooks do count, in my opinion at least. But I couldn't get into Catch-22. But I do like Vonnegut. I've liked 2 of his books so far. I liked Player Piano, which is one of my favorites. And that was another one where I felt like, oh, I gotta go through my books and call some of my books or call my shelves, and I ended up feeling like, oh, let me get rid of this one, because am I really gonna read it again? And now I'm wondering if I was just feeling pressured to get rid of books and made the mistake of getting rid of that one, Player Piano, even though it was a favorite. And I read Galapagos, and I did get rid of that one because that one wasn't a favorite. But I wish I'd kept Player Piano. I could always rebuy it. But what I would want to do is buy that one along with some other ones as well. Because, I bought it once. I mean, I don't want to buy a book, a book that I've just already read. I mean, although I probably have done that before. Like, for instance, I rebought Assassin's Apprentice in The Royal Assassin and Assassin's Quest. Like, I rebought all the Robin Hood books recently. So I'm not done yet though. I gotta buy one more from the Farseer trilogy. And then, I'm thinking about the Soldier Sun trilogy, getting into that one as well. And then there's a few others. But anyway, so let me Okay, so this does that annoying thing where it like does not really tell you. Well, let me wait. Yeah. It's one of those books that doesn't really tell you what the book is about. The actual plot of the book, because the book is so brilliant and they assume that, you've read it and everything, but it says, let's see, I'm not gonna read that thing about Kurt Vonnegut. Okay, so this is where it talks about the book. Slaughterhouse-Five is one of the world's great anti-war books, an American classic centering on the infamous firebombing of Dresden. Billy Pilgrim's odyssey through time reflects the mythic journey of our own fractured lives as we search for the meaning in what we fear most. Okay, so it kind of does tell you what it's about. I mean, it does in a way. I mean, and at least it's not just blurbs. Because, it does have blurbs. And splendid art, a funny book at which you are not permitted to laugh, a sad book without tears. It's from Life magazine. Very tough and very funny, sad and delightful, very Vonnegut. But at least a little creative than just the usual. It's brilliant. This is funny. This is masterful. But anyway, it does tell you, I guess it does tell you what it's about. But yeah, there are some classics where they don't even tell you what the book is about. They just say, it's brilliant. It's masterful. It's a book that does this. Like, they don't tell you what the plot is about. It's like, I'm not going to buy it unless you tell me what the plot is in the description. You explain the plot to me. Don't just tell me. Don't describe. Don't just say, this is awesome. This is a great book. This is a masterful storytelling. Or, this is this author at their best. Like, don't just tell me that. Like, that's not just even if I, like, even if someone talks about how brilliant Stephen King is, I still want to know what the plot of one of his books. I still want to know the actual plot of the story. In the case of him, I already know that I like him. So you don't need to cheerlead about, but, with a classic, like, I don't know what the book is about. I'm not going to automatically read it just because it's brilliant. It's a masterful piece of storytelling, or it does this, or really talks about this. Like, even if it's about an important social issue, I still want to know what the book is about. Like, the actual premise of the book before I buy it. That's one of the things that classics do. That they do that they put on classic descriptions of classics that is just really annoying. Like, it is, at least with this one, it does kind of tell you what happens in the story. But I guess they're assuming that even if you didn't read it, you're gonna hear about it. Which, yeah, there's a lot of classics that you're gonna hear about all the time. And to the point where you're gonna know about it through osmosis. But anyway. So that's this. So those are 3 books I got. As far as non-book related topics, I haven't watched anything lately. Let's see, anything. I did watch a few more episodes of Hell of a Boss, because I gotta finish season 2, and then I gotta, catch up with, what is it? Yellow Jackets. I gotta watch season 3 of that one. So once I'm done with Helga Boss, I'm gonna watch that. And then and I was told to watch The Housemaid, which I've already heard about that one, so it's not a surprise that someone, my coworker was saying how awesome that movie was. So I don't know. I might watch it. Like, it's normally not my thing, but sometimes I've learned to expand my interests, my genre interests. So maybe I will watch it. Just if I see, if I decide, what the heck, I feel like watching this and checking this out. I saw that Ghost Whisperer was one of my favorite shows, was on Prime again. I mean, I might never have left, but so I decided to start rewatching that one, which I like, which I love that show, by the way. It's a great show. It's a very emotional show. It's now I remember what that. I was trying to think of the name of that channel, that booktube channel. I don't know if they consider that a booktube channel, but and it's Life on Books. I think it's called Life with Books or Life on Books. I don't know. I'll send the link. Maybe I'll post the link. I'll post the link in the description box of their channel. They're a really great channel. They talked about a lot of books that aren't as popular. They kind of stay away from the popular books. I mean, they're not totally against popular books, but they, I think they're kind of wary of popular books because but they try to, read, they don't try, they do, they read the books that aren't as well known, like the kind of forgotten classics or authors that aren't as talked about, like William Gass. Is it Gass or Gaddis? No, it might be Gaddis. William Gaddis. It's either Gass or Gaddis. Like I have his book, The Recognitions, which I still have not finished, but it's nothing against the book. It's just a long book. It's a huge book. And I'm still trying to learn to get into those kinds of books. And like I said, the main, I don't know if he would consider himself the main host, but the one called Tony, he's the one who did the video on the independent publishers, and he, like I said, he talked about NYRB publisher, and let's see, what are some other? I'm trying to think of other books that they've talked about. Lonesome Dove. Well, the Lonesome Dove is one of the popular ones, I think, or it has recently had a resurgence popularity. But yeah, they try to read books that aren't they read books that aren't as popular, like they're not part of the mainstream book community. But they're not, like I said, they're not, I don't think they're completely against that. I think it's just they're wary of it. And they're a great channel. I like hearing what they have to say, and like I said, they introduced me to authors that I normally wouldn't have known about, because unless you actually put in the effort to look for these kinds of books, they're not going to necessarily be the books that are going to be made important at bookstores like Books A Million, for instance, or Barnes & Noble. The ones that are talked about on TikTok, the ones that people are obsessed with, the romantasy books and all that. Those are the ones you're going to easily find. While they talk about a lot of authors that aren't as... another author that they mentioned, one of the guys, and I already forgot his name, Andy's name. Andy talks about, he's been doing a Bolaño project. This guy, I can't remember the guy's first name, the author's first name, but Bolaño is the last name. And it was a complete coincidence that I picked up Savage Detectives by that author, and then I watched one of Life on Books' videos, and Andy talks about reading that author and being a big fan of his and doing a project where he's reading all that author's works. And And like I said, it was a pure coincidence that I happened to pick up Savage Detectives from Books A Million. But anyway, so back to the non-book. Like I said, I'll post a link to that channel if you're interested. But which I hope you are, because like I said, they spread the love for the not so known authors' works. But anyway, so Ghost Whisperer, it's a great show about this woman who can talk to the sea spirits. So it's kind of like in Sixth Sense with the character of Cole, except for she's an adult, so she's had her gift for a long time, and she's well adjusted basically mostly, and is accepted her gift and does what she can to help people. It does get a little scary in the beginning, but as she figures out what the ghost stories are, then it gets less scary. And I get so emotional. There are episodes that I've been sobbing my eyes out because it's all about closure and these spirits finding, getting to say goodbye to their loved ones. And so it's a very emotional show. It's about life and death, and is there an afterlife, and about when you die, getting, like I said, getting closure. So it's like scary, a little bit scary in the beginning, maybe even a little creepy, but then as the episode progresses, it's actually more warm and a heartfelt type of show. So if you're looking for scary, then you might not like it, but if you're looking for something that's more emotional and gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching type show, then you might like it. And then I'm also, and that's really all as far as, I have been tempted to, for the fourth time, rewatching the third movie in the Back to the Future trilogy. And I feel guilty that I just watched that one. I will willingly watch that one more than once, but then I won't, watch the second and the first movie. I mean, I will, but my first thought is rewatch the third movie. I want to rewatch the third movie, and because that's really, honestly, that's my favorite one of the trilogy. It'll be the third movie first and then second. That's my order of how my love for that trilogy. But anyway, so yeah, that's all I have that's non-book related to talk about. I hope you're all going, your own reading is going well. And I will talk to you all later. All right, bye.